السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. At first, I want to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving me a chance to say something in this seminar. And I also thank to our honorable chairman of Tawheed First Foundation, Sir Mahmoud al-Haq, and the vice chairman of Tawheed First Foundation. I also want to thank her, Mrs. Siddiq Akhtar, for their hard work in this institution. And I also pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those who are working behind this foundation to help the Muslim children and also to preach authentic Islamic knowledge. Our today's topic is developing reading habits to acquire Islamic knowledge, guidance on the right books and sources. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The question is why we should develop the habit of reading books. Because one may ask that today we can gain knowledge or we do not need reading books. We can read on social platforms by which we can acquire knowledge. For example, Facebook posts, Twitters, or social media platforms. One may think that it is sufficient for them if they read on those platforms. By this way, they can acquire knowledge. They may think that. But point to be noted here that such kind of reading eventually will not benefit him. He may get some information from those places, but the information that he receives from those platforms, sometimes it is not scrutinized or justified. So he may acquire some correct information, and he may also, there is a high possibility he may also acquire some distorted information by reading on those platforms. Even if he says that I read newspapers, so I don't need read books. I get all information there. Even in the newspaper, we find that there are some information that are distorted. And we know that there are some newspaper agencies, they are actually working against Islam. They are preaching information which go against Islam, against the teaching of Islam. So you should be very careful about that. So just reading on those platforms is not sufficient for acquiring knowledge. So here comes reading books, because the information that is inside a book, it is justified. A person, before publishing his books, he scrutinizes his books more than maybe 10 or 30 times. And other people, they also work on that. So merely a person does not write and then publish it without scrutinizing. No. So the information that a book contains, it is justified information. So there is a less possibility, and you have a chance to scrutinize and justify, and you can choose a book by observing or seeing the reviews of that book, what the other readers they say about that book. So after doing all this research, you can choose a book. So here the distorted information taking is less possible, because you have the option to justify those books before choosing them. Why we should develop the habit of reading? There are many benefits of reading, but I'm not going to explain all of them because our time is very limited. But I will just remind you, my dear student, why it is important for us as a student of knowledge to develop the habit of reading. Because it is said about us that nahnu ummatul iqra. We are a nation of reading. Our previous generations people, they used to read a lot. If you read the biography of Ibn Taymiyyah and other scholars like Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawzi, then you will be astonished. Even Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawzi, in one of his there is a statement given by him, may Allah have mercy on his soul. He said that I had read 20,000 books and still I am a student. He said in one of his statements. So imagine he read 20,000 books, and still he said that he was a student at the time. That means after that he continued his reading. So this was the example of our previous generations' life. How did they spend their time? And they read a lot. Ibn Taymiyyah, he has written more than 1,000 books. If a person can read 1,000 books, what does it mean? It means that he also, if a person wrote 1,000 books, it means that he also had read a lot. There is a statement that a generation of readers can spawn a generation of writers. That means more you read, more you will be able to, or you will feel that you need to pass those information to others. This is the human characteristics. Human being, when he gather knowledge and read books, by default or naturally he feels that he should pass those information to us others, and thereby he writes lot. So don't forget the first commandment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given in the Quran in Surah Al-Alaq. It says that أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. This verse, it is sufficient to indicate the importance of reading, because out of 1,000 words Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen this word, which is Iqra, read, to indicate what? To indicate the importance of reading, to indicate that acquiring knowledge, if we want to acquire knowledge, that reading is the wasila. It is the means by which we can acquire knowledge. And this word, Iqra, and the 5 verses that followed it in Surah Alaq have been deeply explored by scholars. Even Ashankiti, rahimahullah, mentioned that this verse signifies the greeting of revelation. And he noted that Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on his soul, wrote approximately 2,000 pages discussing them. That is, those 5 verses of Surah Al-Alaq, Ibn Taymiyyah had discussed about those verses. And we know that in those verses, the reading and writing is mentioned. And the scholars have delved into these verses and saying that the Iqra, that means read, was the first mercy revealed to the humanity. It is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, when he has given this word or revealed this word upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and saying that Iqra, the first verse, so it is a mercy to the humanity, and it signifies reading for the purpose of acquiring knowledge. And it also indicates that Hadaratul Islam, that means Islamic civilization, will be based on knowledge and reading. Because today, if we are to take a book and analyze it, extracting information from it, what we actually find? We would find a vast and remarkable diversity of the knowledge. And through reading, a person moves from one place to another. And reading is the way by which we can connect with our previous generation or our predecessor, with Salaf. Because all the information that our Salaf, they had written, it is inside the book. So today, how can we connect with them? We can connect with them, with their thought, by reading books. Reading, this is a makhras. Al-qira'ah huwa al-makhras. This is the pathway or entrance when a person feels that everything in this dunya become congested or daik lahu. That means when a person feels pressurized, yes, yeah, that means he feels that the world is very small for him, and he doesn't have any way to get out of these problems. In that case, reading can be a entrance for that person. It can help him to get out from this problem. Even today, the problems that we are facing, all the problems that we are facing, because of our ignorance, most of them because of our ignorance. And the solution is there also in the book, because the previous generation scholars, they were human beings like us, and they had the problems also. They faced the problems that we face today. Today we face the problems in our study, in our family issue, in our economical issue, and social issue. And the previous generation, they faced the same challenges and problems. So they found the solution, and the solution is, it is also there. Today, the solution is there. What? Where? In the book. So if we want to find those solutions, definitely we must read. And if we look at the nations, those who are developed today, then we find that they have taken the reading as their natural habit or their daily acts. There is a survey. In the survey, it is found that average reading time for an European is 304 hours. On the other hand, for an Arabs, it is only 6 or 4 hours. So which indicates that very poor, our reading habit is very poor. So the success that we see and the revelation about knowledge that we see in our previous generation's life, it was because of their reading and as well as of their taking knowledge seriously. That means they read a lot. So the result is there. That is the great revelation about knowledge. So today, we Muslim, we forget our previous generation's success and their legacy and their great history. So from this perspective, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed this verse, so from this perspective, it is important for us to take the habit of reading seriously. Another reason for which we need to read, that is, in order to succeed in gaining knowledge. In order to succeed in gaining knowledge. Because when it comes to intellectual and knowledge-based achievements, my dear, there is no doubt that the path to success lies in knowledge. And the path to knowledge lies in reading, definitely. And we see today that a student learns during the lessons, whether madrasa student or university student, or those students who are studying in the circle of mosque, or study in a circle in the mosque, or through online. All this, my dear, is the basic knowledge. That means foundational knowledge. Even when, my dear, we as a student sit with the Shaikh and take notes on beneficial points, this is only the gateway to knowledge. Babun lil ilm. This is the gateway to knowledge. But if we want to achieve the true depth or enlightenment. And if we want to uh, gain mastery in knowledge, then definitely it comes only through self-driven learning, which is personal reading. Because then by personal reading, we will acquire further knowledge, and thereby we will gain success in that knowledge. And from this perspective, my dear, if we see the renowned and prominent and brilliant scholars, those with sharp intellects, are the ones who have immersed themselves deeply in reading. And they are the explorers who have delved into the world of books. Like, for example, when you read the works of or the books of Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on his soul, you find that he even studied the books of Aristotle. And when you read Al-Bidayah or Nihaya, written by Ibn Kathir, may Allah have mercy on his soul, then you will be astonished by seeing the range of references, the kasratul masadir he draws upon in his book. He has given different masadir, or as a information, like when he has quoted an information from a book, he has mentioned the name of that book. Sometimes you find that he mentioned or referred to Al-Bayhaqi, his book Dalail al-Nubuwah. And other time you'll find that Abu Nuaym's name, his works on prophethood, on Nubuwah, Al-Khattabi, Al-Hafiz, Ibn Asakir, Al-Razi, Ibn Ishaq, Ibn Hisham, and countless other books. He has mentioned those references in his books. This variety is what made Ibn Kathir's Tafsir Ibn Kathir and Bidayah and Nihaya timeless work. What does it mean? It means that even today we read those books read before. Why? Because they are timeless work. Their written information is fit for previous generation, and as well as it's fit for us. And another thing, my dear, as a student of knowledge, why we should develop the reading of the habits of reading. Because reading enables one to express themselves in writing. Because we find that, my dear, today there are some students who have the weakness in their intellect, and it is observed in their academic side, and they are unable to express themselves in writing. And we can sometimes attribute those lackings to the lack of reading, because they don't read. As they don't read, so their intellectual level and as well as their expressing ability is weak. So, my dear, when a person reads, definitely he becomes a hunter of beautiful words and expressions. And because, my dear, more you read, it will increase your vocabulary, and more you will read, you will find beautiful expressions written by different writers in their books, beautiful words used by those writers. So definitely or eventually it shapes your character, my dear, your way of speaking, your ability to express yourself. It will affect. If you read more books, definitely it will affect in your character. It will sharpen your character. There are many Arabic scholars, you will find that their writing was very magnificent, like Al-Bashir, Al-Ibrahimi. And when Al-Bashir, Al-Ibrahimi, he was asked that where he cultivated or he learned such mastery, that means his eloquence, his expression in his books was magnificent, nice. So he was asked that how did he cultivate such mastery? From where he learned this style? That he mentioned some of the books he grew up with. That means they used to read the books of great scholar with beautiful expression. By this way, they eventually learned it in their own writing. My dear, it is not possible if you just read a well-written book, then but after reading one or two books, you'll be able to write beautifully like them. No, it requires a long-term exercise. If you read and find the nice information, then memorize it or write it down in your personal note, and then eventually try to implement those things in your own writing. By this way, gradually, inshallah, your writing will be developed. And also, there is another way that, because one of the scholars, he asked that how can he develop the skill of writing. Then the advice was given to that person was that he said that you should read loudly to the works of prominent writers. So by this way, your tongue becomes used to eloquent phrases and articulate pronunciation. So reading loudly, it also helps you, my dear, to memorize those vocabularies and to use it in your writing and as well as when you talk to someone. But for the benefits of reading are many. The time will not permit me to go into details since the time is limited. But I just want to remind you one thing, my dear. There is a special line given by our previous scholars. They said that reading a good book 3 times is better than reading 3 average quality book. That means if you read 3 average quality books separately, and then a beautiful book, if you read this book 3 times, the book that you have read 3 times, it is better than to read 3 books separately. So do not forget these things. And also when you read, there is a statement given by a scholar that it is not sufficient just to go through the book. Sometimes if we read a book, at the end of after finishing the book, even you will not be able to remember the name of that book. It so happened. So how can we become the owner of the information of that book? When you read a book, definitely you should, after reading, you should ponder on that. If you read a verse, a sentence, that after finishing the reading, ponder over that sentence, interact with that, think or add example with that information. So when you read an information, you have to interact with that information if you want to be owner of that information. Otherwise, after reading, maybe you will forget that information. So if you read an information, then interact with this information by different way, like think an example for that information, or write it down, or share it with others. By different way, more you will interact with that information, more this information will be stable in your mind. So if you read 3 books separately, you will forget those information. But if you read 1 book 3 times, the information will be stable in your mind. So because of that reason, if you read the biography of the previous scholars, you will be astonished. There are some scholars, they say that I read Sahih Bukhari more than 1,000 times, and others say I read Sahih Bukhari more than 700 times. So because of their kasratul qira'ah, because of their so much reading, the information that they read, it became their own asset. So don't forget this insightful lines about reading. Insightful rhyme. And how do we read? My dear, I have already explained that how to do that. Now, from whom should we learn the religion? And whose books should we read, my dear? Because you know that today the information are many and scattered. In the internet, you will find the right information and as well as distorted information. And you will find that someone preaching in the name of Islam, and but he preaches something which is against the teaching of Islam. So you have to identify, you have to know that whose book should we follow, or which person should we follow, which person should we listen to. Because famous Tabi Ibn Sirin rahimahullah, he said, indeed, the Arabic text is هذا العلم دين فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم. Indeed, knowledge is an integral part of our religion. That means knowledge, هذا العلم دين. That means integral part of our religion. Like al-ilm, like religion. So therefore, be careful who you take your religious guidance from. So we should be careful. We should take information from scholars or from a person after scrutinizing it. Without scrutinization or without justification, we should not accept anything. Because Islamic knowledge is something by which we want that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with us. We want Jannah. We want salvation from the hellfire. So we should be very careful before implementing those information in our own life. We should be careful. We should justify whether this information is authentic or not. So the person whom we should follow, he has the 8 qualities. If you find these 8 qualities, then you can listen to that person. You can seek knowledge from that person. And that person can be our Qudwa Hasana, role model. But before explaining those 8 qualities, let me tell you, my dear, that a role model or Qudwa al-Hasana, the Qudwa Hasana is not, that means free from sin or error. It's not like that. Because if we find, sometimes it happens that if we find someone makes a mistake or commits a sin, then we stop following that person. We stop listening to that person. If we even find a single mistake done by that person. But it's not correct. Because role model or Qudwa, he is not free from mistake or error or sin. He may slip or make mistakes or sin. Therefore, one should not be dismissed from the position of a role model simply because he has committed a sin, unless that person reached the level of openly declaring that sins and boasting about them and persisting in those sins. If we find such case, then that person would no longer be considered a role model in general sense. But as long as the person he does not commit that sin openly, and he does not persist in that sins, or he does not feel proud of doing that acts, as long as we do not find those things in that person, we cannot he is still fit for role model. That person is still fit for role model. But in that case, he still be followed in certain actions where he has excelled. For example, we know that a prostitute, you may have heard the story of a prostitute who gave water to the thirsty dog. So here, showing mercy to the animal in that act performed by that prostitute, in this specific act, she was worthy of being followed in that specific act. But in overall, she is not. But as that prostitute, she did as an act which is good, which messes with the teaching of Islam. So in that specific act, she was worthy of being followed. The second thing, before explaining those 8 qualities for a role model or for Qudwa Hasana, the qualities that I will mention do not require all of them to be fulfilled by a person for them to be considered role model. But if most of these qualities are present in a person, they can be, or he can be described as a Qudwa Hasana, as a role model whom we can follow, we can listen to him. The first quality, my dear, the first quality for a person, that is starting from the clear foundation, starting from the clear verses. One of the most important traits that should be present in someone who is fit to be a role model is that he starts from the clear and decisive principles. That means in the Quran, there are 2 types of verses. One is muhkamat and another is mutashabihat. Muhkamat are those verses that are clear, that have one meaning. And mutashabihat are those verses that can be explained in different way. So there are some people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about them, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ, as for those in whose heart is deviation from truth, فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ ابْتِغَاءَ الْفِتْنَةِ وَابْتِغَاءَ تَأْوِيلِهِ. They will follow that of it which is unspecific, like which have more than one meaning. Why? Because they seek discord and they seek an interpretation which is suitable for them, because they want to misguide the Muslim. So a person who has such kind of characteristics, he is not fit for being a Qudwa, a role model for us, whom we can follow and we can listen to him and we can gain knowledge from him. The regular, so my dear, the second characteristics of a person who is the second quality of Qudwa, that is the combining the Islamic text, the Quran and Hadith, with consideration of objectives and interest. That means when he will apply the verse of the Quran and the Hadith, he will apply based on the objectives and interest, seeing the maslaha and maqasid. And it is required to consider both aspects, because the current Islamic approach does not create a conflict between text and objectives, but rather align with it. That means, my dear, if you find someone uses Quranic verse and Hadith based on his own understanding that does not messes with the understanding of previous scholars, or a person who apply the Quranic verse and hadith without fulfilling or without recalling the objectives or interest, or in a inappropriate position, if someone applies the Quranic verse and hadith, then that person is not our qudwa, is not our role model. We should abstain from this person. Because a person who is a qudwa, our qudwa, a role model, before applying the Quranic verse and hadith, he should have the proper understanding of the reality, and then good interaction with it. Because in this way, the general objectives or objectives of Sharia will be achieved. So definitely, we must try to find out, when we follow someone or listen to a person, we must make sure that this quality, it is that means he follows such kind of attitude when deals with the Quranic verse and hadith. The third quality is that al-wa'i wal husn al-fahm lil-waqi', awareness and good understanding of reality. For a person to truly deserve the position of a role model, they must be aware of the reality of the people around them. If we want to take him role model, then that person, he must be aware of the reality of the people around them. This is exemplified by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who prioritized, that means he knew the situation of the people, those who were around him, ﷺ. Because when the Prophet ﷺ, he always chose to avoid the fitna and gave precedence to preventing harm over achieving the benefit. Based on his awareness of people's levels of understanding, the Prophet ﷺ, based on the people's levels of understanding, he used to interact with them. And Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he did the same when he refused to kill the head of hypocrites. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he refused to kill when some suggested the Prophet that we should kill him. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam refused to kill that hypocrites, Abdullah ibn Ubay. Why? To avoid the accusation that the Muhammad, peace be upon him, is killing his own companions. Although the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam knew that this person, Abdullah ibn Ubay, he did not really believe in him or in the Akhirah. He was a munafiq, hypocrites. But the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he did not kill him. Why? Because he knew the level of understanding or the nature of other people. Because if the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did it, then other people will accuse him that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he is killing his own companions. So by this way, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prioritized preventing the fitna over the benefit, removing the greatest hypocrites. So if a person whom we want to follow or listen to him, he should have this quality. That means awareness and good understanding of the reality. The fourth quality is placing the interest of the ummah above the interest of the personal benefits. A person is truly worthy of being a role model only when he prioritizes the interest of the Muslims and their collective needs over the individual interest, my dear. If we want to take or adopt a person as a qudwa, as a model, whom we follow and listen to him and take knowledge from that person, we must make sure that this person, he prioritizes the interest of the ummah above the interest of personal benefit. And this is of utmost importance. Because it is clear and established in Islamic law, there are some people whose personal desires and interests overpower them, even within the realm of their work in Islamic knowledge. Because there's some people, what they do, they may acquire a knowledge in a specific Islamic field, but besides benefiting the ummah with his own knowledge, what he does, he debates with some specific groups or specific person. By this way, he spent his own time and knowledge. So this person, actually, he prioritize personal interest over the interest of the ummah. So such kind of person cannot be our qudwa, cannot be our role model. The fifth quality, which is tasdiq al-qawl bil-amal. That means aligning words with actions. Aligning what? Islam is not a philosophical theory, my dear. Because our theoretical discussion is inseparable from practical application. Because if you find that he's content with mere words, if someone just speaks and but in perspective of actions, he does not do anything. His words do not align with his actions. That such kind of person is not worthy of being a role model. We cannot follow him. We cannot listen to him. We cannot read those person's books. The sixth quality, the balance and moderation. Tawazun al-i'tidal. A person to be a role model, to be our qudwa, he should not be among those who are extreme in any form. Because there are some people who are extreme in declaring others as a kafir. And you find that there are some people who are so extreme that they rebuke the Sahaba. So, such kind of, or criticize preachers, such kind of person cannot be our qudwa. Moderation, rather, he should be moderate and balanced. Moderation is one of the most important qualities of a role model. Because you find that there are some people who are rebuking Sahaba. Even they follow the Prophet ﷺ, but they do not like the previous prophets. So such kind of person, he is not fit for the role model. The seventh quality is that not contradicting the established Sharia principle. In our Sharia, there are something which is established, like the Quran, like the Sunnah Nabawi. So nowadays we find that هناك المشككون الذين يشككون في حجية السنة. There are some doubters who are constantly making misconception or spreading misinformation about the Sunnah. They say the Sunnah is not preserved accurately. The Sunnah, we should not follow it. We should only follow the Quran. Even you will find there are a group of people, even today in our Bangladesh, they are trying to misguide the general Muslim. So if you find a person who is only following the Quran but does not follow the Sunnah, then that person cannot be our qudwa. We cannot follow him. We cannot read his books. We cannot listen to that person. The last one is intellectual diversity. A person to be qudwa and role model, he must have the knowledge in a various branches of knowledge. Various branches of knowledge. If you study, like it is because if a person only study the Sharia, but he does not know anything about Hadith or about Arabic language, then there is a high possibility he make a mistake. He makes a mistake. Likewise, a person only studied Hadith, but he did not study usul fiqh or other things. In that case, that person definitely will make a mistake. So, tanawul ma'rifi, different types of knowledge or diversity of knowledge, it will help a person to understand more, and as well as to be fit for our qudwa, whom we can follow. So, my dear, our time is short today, so I don't want to lengthen my speech. But what we have gathered from this lecture, or from this lecture, is that we must read a lot. We must develop the habit of reading, and we must follow those who have these qualities that I have mentioned. Not all, even if they have the majority of these qualities, you can follow them. Definitely, you should not follow a person who just preach the Quran. And you'll find many speakers in the internet, they only preach Quran. Even they do not like the Hadith. They say Hadith is distorted. We shouldn't follow it. So such kind of person, even though they speak from the Quran, using the verse of the Quran, their statement and the sentence and the speech are glittering, but we should not follow them. Because without the Sunnah, we cannot implement the Quran properly. Because Sunnah, it is the practical application, the practical methodology of the Quran. So if we want to follow the Quran, we must follow the Sunnah also. Otherwise, we cannot follow the Quran properly or as it should be followed. So, my dear, no more today. Inshallah, there will be exam based on all the lectures that we have given. So be prepared for that. Listen to these lectures and the other scholars' lectures, like in Shaikh Abu Bakr Zakaria Hafizahullah and Shaikh Dr. Abdul Al-Kafi and other scholars' lectures are also available in the Tawheed Fast YouTube channel. So, and about the parenting and the other issue. So listen to those, especially for the parenting issue and the topic that are related to our seminar. So listen to those things. Inshallah, there will be a question and answer session, and there will be an exam. I will, inshallah, talk to our Honorable Vice Chairman, Siddiq Akhtar. Inshallah, we will take necessary steps to do that. So, my dear, no more today. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Know Tawheed First, and press the bell icon to get new video notifications.